My partner and I, Sheamus and Sharon, have embarked on a journey together spanning 7 years, with the last 4 spent sharing a home and the past 3 engaged to be married. In our story, the complexities of a long-term relationship come to light, revealing both the joys and challenges that accompany commitment. Despite our enduring love and shared aspirations, recent strains have surfaced, casting a shadow over our once vibrant connection. At the heart of our current dilemma lies Sheamus's unwavering dedication to his career, a trait that has earned him the label of a workaholic. While his ambition and drive are admirable, they have begun to take a toll on our relationship, particularly in the realm of intimacy. In the early days of our romance, our bond was marked by frequent moments of closeness, but as Sheamus's professional responsibilities grew, our time together gradually diminished. What once was a spontaneous and passionate connection has evolved into a routine punctuated by sporadic moments of intimacy. The catalyst for our recent discord was Sheamus's promotion to assistant manager, a milestone that promised financial stability but brought with it an increased workload and longer hours. While the salary bump appeared promising on the surface, the reality was far from ideal. Despite his best intentions to secure our future, the demands of his job began to encroach on our relationship, leaving me feeling neglected and longing for the emotional closeness we once shared. Conversations about our dwindling intimacy yielded temporary improvements, but they were often short-lived, overshadowed by the relentless demands of Sheamus's career. Even during his rare moments of respite, he found himself tethered to work-related tasks, leaving little room for quality time together. As I watched him pour himself into his professional pursuits, I couldn't help but feel like an afterthought in his life, longing for the attention and affection that seemed to be reserved for his job. While I understand and appreciate Sheamus's desire to provide for our future, I find myself yearning for more than just financial security. Our relationship thrives on connection and intimacy, elements that have become increasingly scarce in the wake of his career advancement. As we navigate this challenging terrain, I grapple with the delicate balance between supporting his ambitions and nurturing our bond, a balance that requires open communication, compromise, and a willingness to prioritize our relationship amidst life's many demands. He was deeply immersed in his gaming pursuits, often engaging in various gaming groups as a form of stress relief. His passion for gaming was evident, and he frequently extended invitations for me to join him, viewing it as a potential bonding activity. However, gaming didn't resonate with me in the same way, and while I appreciated his efforts to involve me, it didn't bridge the growing gap in our relationship. Moving forward, the dynamics of our workplace added another layer of complexity to our relationship. Working in a large call center exposed us to a spectrum of personal dynamics, including open relationships and marriages, a subject that Jessica, a coworker of mine, broached about a month ago. Jessica shared candidly about her own open relationship with her husband, expressing an interest in exploring the possibility of involving both Sheamus and me. Despite her expressed attraction to Sheamus and her husband's positive regard for me, the notion unsettled me deeply. Despite my clear rejection of Jessica's proposition, she persisted in bringing up the topic, causing a palpable strain on our friendship. The realization of her interest in Sheamus tarnished our interactions, leading to a gradual withdrawal from our once vibrant camaraderie. While we still shared occasional lunches, the warmth of our friendship waned as the discomfort lingered. Several weeks later, Jessica mentioned Taylor, the IT specialist responsible for our department, who was reportedly engaged in an open relationship with his wife. Taylor, an amiable and fit individual in his late 40s, approached me in the break room one day, armed with Jessica's information. Despite my reluctance to entertain the topic, he broached the subject of exploring an open relationship, perhaps emboldened by Jessica's suggestion. Despite my reservations and reiterated disinterest, Taylor's approach signaled a persistent undercurrent within our workplace culture, where personal boundaries often blurred with professional interactions. I found myself grappling with a multitude of conflicting emotions as I reflected on the events that had unfolded. The unexpected conversation with Taylor had left me feeling exposed and vulnerable, as if the boundaries of my relationship had been tested and breached without my consent. It was disconcerting to think that such personal matters were being discussed behind my back, especially in a professional setting where discretion and respect for privacy should have been paramount. Moreover, Taylor's persistence in advocating for an open relationship only served to compound my feelings of discomfort and uncertainty. While I appreciated his candor and the sincerity of his intentions, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that his interest in me was driven more by curiosity than genuine concern for my well-being. It felt as though he was trying to impose his own beliefs and values onto me, without fully considering or respecting my perspective. As I grappled with these thoughts and emotions, I couldn't help but feel a sense of disillusionment with my relationship with Sheamus. What had once been a source of joy and fulfillment now seemed fraught with tension and uncertainty. The missed opportunities for connection and intimacy, coupled with Sheamus's increasingly demanding work schedule, had eroded the foundation of our relationship, leaving me feeling adrift and uncertain about our future together. The events of that evening only served to exacerbate my feelings of frustration and disappointment. Sheamus's sudden change in plans felt like a betrayal of the trust and commitment we had once shared. It was disheartening to think that our once vibrant and passionate relationship had been reduced to mere convenience, overshadowed by the demands of work and the pressures of everyday life. As I lay awake that night, unable to shake the sense of unease that had settled over me, I couldn't help but wonder where we had gone wrong. Had we allowed ourselves to become complacent, to take each other for granted, to lose sight of the things that had drawn us together in the first place? Or were we simply victims of circumstance, caught in the relentless tide of change and upheaval that seemed to define modern relationships? These questions swirled through my mind, each one more unsettling than the last. And yet, amid the uncertainty and doubt, there remained a glimmer of hope, a belief that perhaps, with time and effort, we could find our way back to each other, rediscover the love and connection that had once defined us. But for now, all I could do was wait, and hope, and pray that somehow, against all odds, we would find our way back to each other. I barely managed to mutter, "All right, bye," before abruptly ending the call. My emotions were visibly perturbed, prompting me to request an early lunch break, which my manager graciously approved. As I sat in the lunchroom, Taylor, a perceptive colleague, noticed my distress and approached me. He offered a comforting presence and engaged me in a soothing conversation that gradually alleviated my agitation. By the time our break ended, I felt significantly calmer. Before returning to work, Taylor extended an invitation to join him and some of our colleagues for happy hour. Despite my initial reluctance, I eventually acquiesced, feeling obliged to accept his offer after his efforts to uplift my spirits. During our time together, Taylor shared personal insights about his own marriage, revealing parallels between his experiences and mine with Sheamus. He recounted how opening up their relationship had ultimately strengthened their bond, leaving me intrigued by the possibility of a similar resolution. After parting ways with Taylor and returning home, I found myself contemplating the idea of discussing the concept of open relationships with Sheamus. Upon his arrival later that evening, I broached the topic tentatively, inquiring about his day and subtly hinting at my desire for more quality time together. As our conversation progressed, I cautiously introduced the subject of open relationships, prompting a mixture of surprise and skepticism from Sheamus. His initial reaction was one of disapproval, dismissing the notion as impractical and morally objectionable. He expressed a firm belief that such arrangements inevitably led to infidelity and undermined the sanctity of committed partnerships. Despite my attempts to provide a nuanced perspective, Sheamus remained steadfast in his opposition, adamant that loyalty and fidelity were non-negotiable values in our relationship. Feeling somewhat disappointed by Sheamus's reaction, I hesitated to divulge further details about my colleague's experiences with open relationships, fearing his judgment. However, I eventually mustered the courage to share Jessica's proposition and Taylor's subsequent encouragement. Sheamus responded with a mixture of surprise and concern, questioning why I hadn't disclosed this information earlier. Despite his reservations, he assured me of his commitment to our relationship, albeit with a renewed sense of vigilance regarding our social interactions. Reflecting on our conversation, I couldn't help but feel a sense of ambivalence. While Sheamus's steadfast adherence to traditional relationship norms provided a sense of security, it also underscored the widening chasm between our perspectives on intimacy and commitment. As I pondered the complexities of our relationship, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that our differing values might eventually drive us further apart. As he continued probing with more questions about the topic, he asked for my opinion on it. I replied that if it worked for those involved, then it was their choice. He further inquired if I would ever consider something like this, and I clarified that I would only do it if he were in agreement. He seemed surprised by my response and repeated, "So you're telling me that if I agreed to this, you would do it?" I confirmed, "Yes, but only if you agree to it." His reaction was simply, "Wow, okay," accompanied by a somewhat perplexed look. Our conversation ended when he received a call from his dad and spoke with him for nearly 20 minutes. Afterward, we started making out and had a special night together, a refreshing change. However, during the following week, Sheamus consistently worked late, sometimes past 7 p.m. due to a sudden employee resignation without notice. Feeling frustrated, I decided to join Taylor for a drink again. We headed out right after work and stayed until 7 o'clock p.m. During this time, we delved deep into discussions about open relationships and how such an arrangement might work for both of us. I must admit, our conversation ventured into some sensitive territory, crossing boundaries, but it remained purely conversational. Afterward, I ordered takeout from the bar for Sheamus and me and returned home without informing Sheamus about my time with Taylor. For the subsequent week, things appeared to be improving between Sheamus and me. Although he still worked late, he managed to get home before 7 p.m. We had plans for a nice dinner on Thursday to celebrate our 7th year together. However, the night before, Sheamus informed me that his regional manager was coming in the next day and had scheduled an unexpected operations review. He apologized and suggested that we postpone our anniversary celebration to Friday. I could tell he sensed my disappointment, but I reluctantly agreed. He also mentioned that he needed to spend the evening in our home office to prepare for the following day, which meant he couldn't join me for our planned TV time. I felt extremely upset and just overall frustrated by the situation. The next morning, he woke up before 5 o'clock a.m. and left the house around 6 a.m. He kissed me tenderly goodbye, his lips conveying both affection and the weight of his impending absence. With a mention of the late return due to the regional manager's dinner, I nodded understandingly, though internally, the prospect of another lonely evening gnawed at my heart. Extracting a promise for our postponed outing the next day, I sought reassurance from him, to which he responded with sincerity, vowing to be home by 5 p.m., his commitment a beacon of hope amidst the shadows of disappointment. As the workday drew to a close, Taylor's message inviting me for post-shift drinks offered a glimmer of solace, a potential reprieve from the solitude awaiting me at home. Contemplating the invitation, I weighed the allure of companionship against the discomfort of potential complications. Eventually, I acquiesced, deciding to freshen up before joining Taylor at the tavern, the anticipation of a distraction from my woes urging me forward. Arriving at the tavern just after 5 p.m., the atmosphere hummed with the chatter of patrons seeking refuge from the day's stresses. Amidst the warm glow of dim lights and clinking glasses, Taylor's presence brought a sense of camaraderie, his friendly demeanor a welcome respite from the solitude of my thoughts. Engaging in conversation, we traversed various topics, from light-hearted banter to more intimate discussions. As the evening unfolded, the line between camaraderie and intimacy blurred, the weight of unspoken desires lingering in the air like a subtle yet palpable tension. Despite the warmth of Taylor's presence, a part of me recoiled at the notion of crossing boundaries, the sanctity of my commitment to Sheamus looming large in my mind. However, as the night wore on and inhibitions waned, a moment of vulnerability gave way to an unexpected gesture, Taylor's touch lingering longer than was appropriate, his lips seeking mine in a fleeting yet charged moment. Caught off guard, I recoiled inwardly, a rush of conflicting emotions clouding my senses. Though I did not voice my discomfort, I was acutely aware of the breach of boundaries, the unspoken agreement of fidelity hanging heavy between us. Returning home, the anticipation of reuniting with Sheamus mingled with the unease of concealing the evening's events, the weight of guilt casting a shadow over the threshold. As Sheamus's arrival drew near, I braced myself for the inevitable dance of half-truths and omissions, the facade of normalcy a fragile shield against the truth lurking beneath the surface. In the aftermath of our confrontation, a heavy silence engulfed our once vibrant home, punctuated only by the echo of my own remorseful thoughts. The absence of Sheamus's presence was a palpable void, a haunting reminder of the rift that now lay between us. As I wandered through the rooms that still bore traces of his existence, an abandoned sweater draped over a chair, a forgotten photograph adorning the mantel. I couldn't help but replay our last conversation in my mind, each word a dagger that pierced my already wounded heart. The weight of my actions pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket, suffusing every corner of our home with an overwhelming sense of loss and regret. In the solitude of our once shared space, I found myself grappling with a myriad of emotions: guilt, sorrow, anger, and a profound sense of loneliness that seemed to envelop me like a shroud. Every corner of our home held memories of happier times, now tinged with the bitter sting of betrayal. As night fell and the world outside grew quiet, I retreated to our empty bedroom, seeking solace in the familiarity of our shared space. But even here, the absence of Sheamus's presence loomed large, casting a long shadow over the bed where we had once shared whispered secrets and tender embraces. Alone in the darkness, I found myself haunted by the memory of his departure, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the hallway, the slam of the front door reverberating through the silent house. It was a moment etched in my mind, a stark reminder of the irrevocable damage I had wrought upon our relationship. In the stillness of the night, I lay awake, wrestling with a torrent of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. Regret gnawed at my insides, a relentless reminder of the choices I had made and the consequences they had wrought. And as the first light of dawn crept through the window, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with uncertainty, my path forward obscured by the shadows of my own making. I struggled to contain my emotions, collapsing onto the bed in a desperate bid to wake from what felt like a nightmare. Each passing day was marked by a flurry of text messages, laden with apologies, regrets, and declarations of love, all met with a deafening silence from his end. The weight of his absence bore down on me, plunging me into a deep abyss of despair. In a bid to lift my spirits, my girlfriends from work rallied around me one Saturday evening, coaxing me out for a night of revelry. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to drown in the intoxicating haze of alcohol, seeking solace in its numbing embrace. As the effects of the night wore off, I found myself roused from a fitful slumber by a persistent knocking at the door. Peering through bleary eyes, I was greeted by the sight of Sheamus, a rush of conflicting emotions washing over me. His unexpected presence filled me with a glimmer of hope, yet I couldn't shake the gnawing sense of apprehension that gripped me. Hastily throwing open the door, I enveloped him in a tight embrace, pouring out my pent-up emotions in a torrent of words. But his demeanor was starkly different, his expression grave as he gently ushered me inside. With a heavy heart, he explained that he didn't have time for pleasantries, his father was waiting in the car. And then came the news that shattered my fragile sense of hope: a promotion. Yes, but one that came with a devastating caveat. The store he would manage lay in another state, and he would be relocating in a mere 2 weeks. The words hit me like a sledgehammer, each syllable driving home the harsh reality of our situation. In a desperate bid to cling to the remnants of our shattered relationship, I pleaded with him to let me accompany him. But his response was as final as it was devastating: a cold rejection, followed by the crushing blow of a breakup. Tears welled in my eyes as I searched his face for answers, grappling with the enormity of his decision. His words were a bitter pill to swallow, leaving me reeling with a sense of profound loss and uncertainty. In that moment, the future stretched out before me like an endless abyss, each step forward fraught with the weight of my newfound solitude. After hearing Sheamus's announcement about terminating our apartment lease, I felt like my world was crumbling around me. The weight of his decision hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just about ending our relationship, it was about uprooting my entire life. The news that the rental manager agreed to reduce the remaining lease to just 60 days brought a mix of relief and panic. On one hand, it meant I wouldn't be tied to the apartment for too long, but on the other hand, it signaled the impending reality of finding a new place to live, which seemed like an insurmountable task given my financial situation. Sheamus's assurance that he had taken care of the final lease payment felt like a final blow. It was a stark reminder of my dependence on him for financial stability. Without his support, I couldn't afford to stay in the apartment, let alone sign a new lease. As I pleaded with him for another chance, I could feel the desperation in my voice. But his response was cold and final. There was no turning back. The realization that he had already packed his belongings and was ready to leave left me reeling. It was as if he had already moved on while I was still struggling to come to terms with the end of our relationship. The bathroom offered a temporary sanctuary where I could let my emotions run wild. The tears flowed freely as I grappled with the magnitude of what had just transpired. Each sob felt like a release, yet the pain remained raw and unrelenting. When Sheamus left without a backward glance, it was a stark reminder of how alone I truly was. The silence that followed his departure was deafening, punctuated only by the sound of my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. The arrival of my work friends brought a brief respite from the overwhelming despair. Their presence offered a glimmer of hope in the darkness that had consumed me. With their support, I felt slightly more capable of facing the uncertainty that lay ahead. My mom's arrival later that night was a bittersweet moment. While I was grateful for her presence, it also served as a stark reminder of just how far I had fallen. As I lay awake in bed, my mind raced with unanswered questions and unspoken regrets. In the days that followed, I found myself grappling with a sense of profound loss. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the end of a life I had once known. Every corner of our apartment held memories of happier times, now tinged with sorrow and regret. Moving back to my parents' house felt like taking a step backward, a painful reminder of all that I had lost. Yet, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for redemption. I'm filled with regret and longing, wishing I could rewind time and make different choices. Reflecting on everything now, it's crystal clear what I foolishly sacrificed. To make matters worse, about a week before I left, I ran into Sheamus's father at the gas station. We've always had a good rapport, and during our conversation, he mentioned that Sheamus had come looking for me at the restaurant the night I was with Taylor. He wanted to share news of his promotion and invite me to celebrate with him. Learning this completely devastated me. I've had a few phone conversations with Sheamus since he moved. He mentioned that he's genuinely happy with his new job, despite being incredibly busy. I offered my sincere apologies, and he graciously accepted, thanking me for the wonderful years we spent together. However, he made it clear that he doesn't see us reconciling as a couple. Despite the pain I feel, I'm not pressuring him or acting clingy. I'm simply grateful that he's still willing to maintain a civil relationship and talk to me. During our last call a couple of weeks ago, I expressed to him that if he ever changes his mind, I'd be on the next flight out to see him. That's pretty much the update for now. I have my first therapy session scheduled for next week, and I've spent the past week submitting job applications to several places. Your prayers and the support and kindness extended to me, even from complete strangers, mean the world to me. Alright, enough about me. Let's dive into another exciting story. Stay tuned for more adventures. Now, let me take you back to my third year of college. One day, while visiting the local city library, I had a chance encounter with a captivating girl. She mentioned being single when we met, prompting us to exchange email addresses. Unlike myself, she wasn't pursuing a college education. Instead, she was focused on preparing for a clerical position at a local hospital. Our initial interactions were sporadic, primarily due to her demanding work schedule and my commitments to my studies. However, as we corresponded, I gradually learned about her tumultuous past with her ex-boyfriend. Despite her desire to end things with him, she hesitated to fully let him go, citing her genuine feelings for me and her belief in the potential of our relationship. Our relationship began to evolve from casual exchanges to more meaningful interactions. After several months of getting to know each other, we transitioned into a casual dating phase, marked by exciting outings, exploration of new places, and engaging conversations about our aspirations and dreams. With each passing day, our bond grew stronger, and it became evident that we were moving towards a more exclusive relationship. Despite living separately, we both expressed enthusiasm about the possibility of moving in together once my lease expired. The idea of sharing a home filled us with anticipation and excitement for the future. She confided in me about her past struggles with her ex-boyfriend, highlighting his irresponsible behavior and the challenges she faced in severing ties with him. Despite some initial concerns about her past, I trusted her judgment and believed that she had made the right decision in moving forward with me. However, as our relationship deepened, I couldn't shake off the feeling that she might be hiding something from me. There were instances when she seemed distant or failed to respond promptly to my messages, leaving me feeling unsettled and anxious. Eventually, I mustered the courage to address my concerns directly, emphasizing the importance of honesty and transparency in our relationship. Her revelation about her ex-boyfriend's stalking behavior came as a shock, leaving me torn between disbelief and concern. Despite my initial doubts, I couldn't ignore the gravity of her situation and the potential danger she faced. This revelation prompted me to reevaluate my trust in her and the complexities of navigating a relationship in the face of external threats and challenges. Approaching her explanation with caution, I decided to pay her a visit one day as I returned from a friend's house. It wasn't an impromptu visit back then. Without the convenience of cell phones, dropping by unannounced was quite common. As I approached her apartment door, I was taken aback to encounter a man leaving with a large box. Our brief exchange in the hallway left me feeling startled and bewildered. After all, she had previously informed me that he was stalking her, so his presence didn't quite add up. She quickly reassured me that he had come to retrieve his belongings, attributing the stalking incidents to his property still being in her possession. Despite her insistence, doubts began to creep in, and I found myself questioning the authenticity of her explanation. The whole situation seemed suspicious, leaving me uncertain about whether I could fully trust her. As the semester drew to a close and our plan to move in together approached, my uncertainties only grew. Despite my doubts, her behavior became notably affectionate, as if she were trying to reassure me of her commitment. Her gestures, such as cooking for me and thoughtful gifts, momentarily assuaged my concerns. Slowly but surely, she began to regain my trust, and as we made preparations to move in together, I genuinely believed our relationship was progressing smoothly. However, everything changed when she unexpectedly broached the topic of an open relationship. I was taken aback, as the idea had never crossed my mind before. She spoke passionately about the freedom and liberation it could offer, leaving me unsure of how to respond. Hoping she would drop the subject, I chose to remain silent, unaware that this conversation marked the beginning of a revelation that would shake the very foundation of our relationship. During an intimate moment, she shared her desires regarding engaging in sexual encounters with multiple partners, catching me completely off guard. It was a revelation that I struggled to comprehend, and it sparked a series of internal conflicts and doubts about our compatibility and the future of our relationship. It felt like a form of foreplay, and in the heat of the moment, I didn't give it too much thought. However, once our passion had cooled, her words lingered in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she might genuinely want to turn this fantasy into a reality. Consumed by these thoughts, I began deeply contemplating the potential consequences of such a proposition. I questioned whether our love and commitment were sufficient for her, and the idea of sharing her with someone else stirred up unsettling feelings within me. The uncertainty surrounding whether I could accept this weighed heavily on my emotions, leaving me torn and confused, unsure of how to navigate the situation. This unexpected revelation led me to doubt the strength of our love, as it seemed our desires were diverging. As I grappled with my emotions, I realized the need to take some time to process everything before making any decisions about our future. Following her expressions of desire during our intimate moments, which didn't resonate with me but seemed to please her, we engaged in further discussions. She disclosed that her ex-boyfriend had a penchant for watching her with other men and once again proposed the idea of an open relationship. Respectfully, I declined, explaining that I had no interest in such a lifestyle. Unfortunately, my decision didn't sit well with her, and she responded with passive-aggressive behavior, attempting to provoke me. Her efforts to irritate me didn't yield the desired results, so she gradually became less affectionate and even withheld intimacy as a way of expressing her frustration, likening my behavior to that of a child. This situation began to weigh heavily on me, occupying my thoughts and causing my academic performance to suffer due to a lack of concentration in school. After careful deliberation, I made the difficult choice to terminate the relationship. Upon returning home, I knew it was the right decision for my emotional well-being despite the pain it caused. As I gathered the courage to confront her, the weight of uncertainty and apprehension hung heavy in the air. It was a moment fraught with tension, a pivotal juncture that would shape the course of our relationship. With a heavy heart, I embarked on the delicate task of articulating my deepest emotions, bracing myself for the tumultuous storm that was sure to follow. Approaching her doorstep, my mind raced with a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. Each step felt like a monumental leap into the unknown, a journey fraught with uncertainty and trepidation. As I reached out to ring the doorbell, a sense of unease washed over me, mingling with the palpable tension that permeated the air. The door swung open, revealing her silhouette framed against the soft glow of the hallway light. In that fleeting moment, our eyes locked in a silent exchange fraught with unspoken words and hidden emotions. It was a moment pregnant with anticipation, a prelude to the tumultuous confrontation that lay ahead. Summoning every ounce of courage within me, I began to speak, my words trembling with the weight of unspoken truths and suppressed emotions. I spoke of my doubts, my fears, and my growing uncertainty about the future of our relationship. Each word hung heavy in the air, punctuated by the deafening silence that enveloped us. Her reaction was immediate, a torrent of emotion that swept through the room like a raging inferno. Anger, hurt, and desperation mingled in a tumultuous whirlwind of emotion, leaving me reeling in its wake. In that moment, I realized the true extent of the chasm that had formed between us, a gaping void that seemed insurmountable in its magnitude. Despite her impassioned pleas and desperate attempts to change my mind, I remained steadfast in my resolve. It was a decision born out of necessity, a recognition of the irreconcilable differences that had come to define our relationship. As I stood firm in my conviction, I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation wash over me, a newfound freedom born from the courage to embrace my truth. In the days that followed, her presence lingered like a ghost, haunting the corners of my mind with memories of what once was. Yet, amidst the echoes of the past, I found solace in the knowledge that I had chosen the path of authenticity, even in the face of uncertainty and doubt. As I reflect on that fateful moment, I am reminded of the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity to endure even the darkest of storms and emerge stronger on the other side. Though the road ahead may be fraught with challenges and obstacles, I walk it with a renewed sense of purpose guided by the unwavering light of truth and authenticity. Upon their arrival, my parents were ecstatic to meet their supposed grandchild, eagerly anticipating their new role as grandparents. However, I found myself in the uncomfortable position of having to halt their excitement and explain that I harbored serious doubts about the child's paternity. Despite the joyous occasion, I couldn't shake the feeling of disconnect upon seeing the baby. There was no resemblance to me whatsoever, casting doubt on my biological connection to the child. Given her existing reliance on government aid, the state mandated a paternity test, a standard procedure in such cases to establish parental responsibility for child support. Understanding the gravity of the situation, I consented to the test. When the results arrived, confirming a less than 1% likelihood of paternity, I knew it was time to sever ties and move forward. In subsequent encounters with her, which occurred over 2 decades ago now, she appeared remorseful, attempting to apologize for the turmoil she had caused. Through mutual acquaintances, I eventually learned the truth that the real father was her ex-boyfriend, the very same individual she had previously claimed was stalking her. Tragically, his struggles with health issues and substance abuse culminated in his premature passing, leaving the child without a paternal figure. Throughout this tumultuous ordeal, I remained composed and cooperative, earning recognition from the county prosecutor's office for my responsible conduct. Reflecting on the situation, it became evident that her pursuit of me was driven by ulterior motives, my status as a college student with a promising future. While I harbored no ill will towards her, the combination of her deceitful actions, proposal of an open relationship, and infidelity ultimately led me to terminate the relationship.